Hello, this is the 28th lecture on Revelation and World History. Last time, we learned that the 144,000 appear in real history. The number 144,000, mentioned in the book of Revelation, is a number that appears at a specific point in time in the fulfillment of the prophecy. In 1910, the Korean Peninsula was forcibly annexed by Japan, and colonial rule began. The 105 people incident of 1911 marked the beginning of Japan's oppression of Korea and its full-scale persecution of the church. During this period, the number of Presbyterian church members in Korea reached 144,000. This is recorded in detail in the minutes of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Korea. The following year, on September 1, 1912, the First Presbyterian General Assembly in Korea was formed. Despite the continued oppression of the Korean Church by the Japanese, the Korean Church continued to grow day by day. In this lecture, we'll explore the historical sites where prophecy is fulfilled. Revelation and World History, Chapter 4, Section 3. The Sunrise and the Korean Peninsula. Then I saw another angel, ascending from the sunrising, having the seal of the living God. Revelation chapter 7, verse 2. The place where the angel came with the seal of God is described as the sunrising. Basically, the sunrising refers to the east. However, if it refers to a specific region, it becomes vague. It is difficult to determine whether it refers to the east of Jerusalem or Palestine, or to another region. First, Asia, meaning east, could be the appropriate term. Centered around Greece, the region of present-day Turkey was called Asia. Therefore, in comparison to the entire Asia region, that region alone was sometimes called Asia Minor. In the book of Revelation, the direction the angel came from, the direction of the rising sun, indicates the place where this prophecy will be fulfilled. So, is there a specific region on the round earth where the sun rises? Yes, it refers to the region where a new day begins, beyond the international dateline. There are several places, based on inhabited land, where a new day begins earliest beyond the international dateline. First, eastern Siberia, the northernmost region, falls into this category. Others include the Marshall Islands in the equatorial region, and New Zealand and nearby islands in the southern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is excluded here. Because Babylon, as mentioned in the book of Revelation, is said to invade from the north, the southern hemisphere should be excluded. This means that the historical site where prophecy is fulfilled is the north. Siberia is a region of Russia, and thus part of the Soviet Union itself, and therefore not one of the countries invaded by Babylon. And then, there is Japan. However, Japan, as a nation that invaded the Korean Peninsula, and several Asian countries, is not considered a nation suffering from invasion. If that happens, the Korean Peninsula will be the only nation among the nations where the sun rises to be invaded by Babylon. Furthermore, the east of the rising sun should be viewed as the continent, connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia. The Korean Peninsula is located at the easternmost point of all these countries, in the direction of the rising sun. There's another point. It was during the Goryeo dynasty that the name of Korea became known to the world. But it also has another name, Joseon. This name is still used in North Korea as North Joseon. This national name, Joseon, was adopted by Yi Sung-kye when he founded his new nation, succeeding Goryeo. It is worth examining the meaning of the Chinese characters used to write Joseon. It is composed of the characters Jo, morning, and Sun, new. In other words, it means, a country welcoming a new dawn. In other words, the national name Joseon also means, a place welcoming a new dawn. A country located in the east, where the sun rises. This name, too, signifies a name predestined by God. The number, 144,000, is even more clear, because it relates to the number of believers in the Korean church, who were persecuted by the Japanese. After 36 years of Japanese rule, the Korean peninsula seemed poised for liberation, but Soviet intervention severed the peninsula's midsection. The northern half became a communist state, under the aegis of Red Babylon, the Soviet Union. Pyongyang, once called the Jerusalem of the East, became the center of a communist state, ruled by Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Perhaps the nickname, Jerusalem of the East, was not a nickname, but rather a reference to the Korean peninsula. Becoming the Jerusalem, the land of Israel, where biblical prophecy would be fulfilled. During the Japanese colonial period, the Korean church experienced a great revival, despite Japanese oppression. However, Soviet intervention led to the communization of the northern half of the Korean peninsula. At the time of liberation, 2/3 of Korean Christians were in North Korea. That is, how prosperous the church was in the North Korean region. However, the persecution of the Kim Il-sung regime led to the complete annihilation of the North Korean church. This marks the only instance, in the 2,000-year history of the global church, where the church was completely destroyed, under the control of a single ruler. In 1910, the Korean peninsula was forcibly annexed by Japan, and colonial rule began. Following the 105 people incident in 1911, the Japanese began full-scale persecution of the Korean church. During this period, the number of Presbyterian church members in Korea reached 144,000. Despite the continued persecution of the Korean church by the Japanese, the Korean church continued to grow day by day. The Book of Revelation and the prophecies describe the place where this history is fulfilled as the east where the sun rises. The prophecies are being fulfilled on the Korean peninsula, located in the east, where the sun rises. In the next lecture, we will examine how this historical background aligns with the contents of the prophecies. It was the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can continue listening to the lectures on Revelation and world history.